means we're automatically under assessing by 15%. So kind of keep that in mind when you look at the market. When I say it's going up 13.78%, that indicates that next year is likely also going to be going up considerably more because those sales have not even been fully used yet. Can we get it or no? It's okay. So one of the things that we like to look at, so when we're exploring a 2-year time period, one of the things that you might say that might bring you concern is what happens if the market turns right at the end of our 2-year time period. We've got a 9-month gap in there between when our sales window ends until our valuation date. What if August 2008 occurs right there, right at the March 2023? Or maybe more pertinent to today is what if interest rates started out on a 30-year fixed mortgage at 3.1% 2.5 years ago, and then moved to 6.25% at the end of that window, and then 6 months after that up to 7.5%, right? As those interest rates climb, one would expect as that money gets more expensive, you might say, that the assets that they're pursuing would have to come down in price. So what my concern always is has the market turned, right? After our valuation date there, has the market turned? And one of the things that the state requires is that we explore, we don't have to use the study, but we have to explore a 1-year study where we're taking into account what if something occurred after that time. We prefer a 2-year study because it's very conservative in our estimates. We're almost guaranteed to be low. But if the market turns, we want to always look at a 1-year study to say, okay, if the market turned, this would reflect that. And if the 1-year study indicates a lower value or indicates the market is declining, then we use the 1-year study over the 2-year study. Does that make sense? Always to make sure that we're not over assessing, and if the market is turning, that we're reflecting it sooner. The advantage, of course, then is the midpoint. Instead of being 18 months in the past, it's 9 months in the past, and we're taking advantage of the more current sales. So what was the result then, right? What is the result? We have a 2-year study and a 1-year study. The 2-year study showed almost a 14% increase. The 1-year study, fortunately or unfortunately, showed not only that the values are continuing to increase, but they're increasing at a faster rate, which means even next year, we're likely to be using a 2-year study and seeing substantial increases. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Brian. Very glad this is your job. Thank you for your expertise. Also, thank you for mentioning the award. Please pass on our congratulations. Commissioner Cosby.
Just a quick question, Brian. So does that mean that, so you can do a 2-year study, that's the standard, but you have a 1-year option here. You can take the better of the 2 outcomes then?
We have the option. I guess I'm a little hesitant to say the better of the 2 outcomes because I guess depending on where you're sitting, better could be defined differently. What we're looking at with a 1-year study is to say, is the market declining? Okay. And obviously, based on what I just said, the market is not declining with a 1-year study. It's actually doing the opposite. It is climbing at a faster rate than the 2-year study.
The values of the homes are?
Values of homes, correct.
Okay. Not number of sales. Thank you.
Commissioner Belknap.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate the information. You talked about the studies and looking at properties by their property class.
Yes.
And sales. Does part of the study, do you ever look at the rates of sales by the various property classes? In other words, is agricultural properties selling at the same rate as industrial or commercial, or is there any kind of trends that you're seeing across the different classes?
I'm not positive if I understand the question behind your question, but we equalize all classes of property separately. So we equalize the residential class separate from the agricultural class, separate from the commercial class. So yes, we are looking at all of the agricultural sales, and we're using those sales to help us equalize that market separate from the commercial, separate from the industrial.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
I guess my question might be more along the lines with, is there like a percentage of, are you seeing one particular class more active in sales than another class? And the reason why I bring it up is, as you drive around the county, we see a lot of agricultural lands, and a lot of them have, for sale signs. And I know in our county, we spend a lot of time and effort on, agricultural preservation and, education and the, Farmers Bureau and that type of thing. And it's just kind of a curious thing. Are we seeing a lot of movement in our agricultural properties?
I will say maybe more anecdotal. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but my perception has been that the sales volume has slowed with agricultural properties.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Thank you very much, Brian.
You bet. Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, we're on number 10, public comment. Is there anyone who would like to address the board?
Donna Mooney, Georgetown Township. While some in the media and even the mayor of Hudsonville attempt to malign and smear every Republican in this county as being right-wing extremists, I want to remind everyone that the Uniparty Democrats and rhinos have been in charge of Michigan since 2018 and the federal government for 3 years. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I'm an American citizen, and I encourage every concerned citizen to stand in unity together against our infiltrated government that is not working in our best interests. The best disinfectant for darkness is sunlight, and even that they are trying to control. See geoengineeringwatch.org for the government patents on that subject. They are responsible for lockdowns, threatening forced untested vaccinations while colluding with Big Pharma, also known as fascism, planning the release of their new election year virus dubbed Disease X, involving the U.S. in foreign wars, sending trillions of taxpayer dollars overseas, facilitating a border invasion that promotes human and fentanyl trafficking, with millions of military-aged men pouring into the country to the extent that city governments are booting children from their schools to house them, and they're asking residents to take them into their homes. Texas and 23 other states, meanwhile, are finally stepping up to close the border, which the Biden administration continues to fight to keep open for the sole purpose of importing a slave class that will fraudulently vote to keep these criminals in power, all the while pointing the projection finger at anyone who opposes them. The state of the economy can be found in your own grocery receipts, and they smile and tell you the economy is getting better and that inflation is only 3.4% when the cost of eggs is twice as much and many other products are at 33% or more. Our out-of-pocket medical expenses continue to skyrocket for those not receiving free health care. They continue shutting down energy and forcing people into unreliable and unaffordable wind and solar, speech control, lawfare of political opponents, and an obvious two-tier justice system and continual attacks on individual rights. When anyone tries to point any of this out, all we get is "but Trump." Trump hasn't been in office in over 3 years. At what point do you take responsibility for your vote that put the politicians in place who have created these policies? When do you start caring about your own family and community instead of forcing people who can no longer afford to keep up with the skyrocketing cost of living to continue funding this bill? You've disregarded all of this, but you own it. Please put your virtue signal where your mouth is and offer to fund this yourself and take these young military-age males into your homes with your family. For everyone else who's had enough, please remember the chaos, destruction, and misery that's being created by these people and stand with us at the ballot box to try to put an end to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board?
Hi, Sheila Detloff, Holland Township. So coming up in the State of the County lecture, Joe Moss might brag about getting broadband through when the previous board couldn't, when in fact the previous board approved $7.5 million in ARPA funds for the project, which is what Moss used for the county contribution. After a holdup with grant money, this board voted on it on December 12th, but we were all holding our breaths since the grant money came from the Coronavirus Capital Projects Fund, and we all know how Joe feels about COVID money, unless it's going straight into his pocket. Moss is also probably going to brag. Can you get your little peanut gallery to quiet down back here?
If the audience could please allow the speaker to continue, that would be great.
Joe Moss might also brag about getting the fire foam trailers. In fact, he has Commissioner Bonema to thank for that, who talked to the Director of Emergency Management and pushed the issue, and then made sure all concerns and questions from the public and from commissioners were addressed. Moss might also brag about getting body cameras for the sheriff's office. In fact, if you look at the capital improvement plan that it was approved last year, body cameras were listed as a currently approved project, meaning the funding for the cameras was approved in a previous year. As of today, there are still no body cams being used in Ottawa County. Moss might also brag about expanding the Department of Veterans Affairs and hiring a director. In fact, the method he used to hire that director may have been illegal. Michigan statute MCL 35.623 states that the board can create the department, but administration is under the Veterans Affairs Committee, including appointing a director or veteran service officer. Basically, all the statute allows the board to do is create the department and provide building space. Moreover, Kendra Wenzel sits on the committee, but she was never properly appointed by the Board of Commissioners as is required. So if there's anything that you should be bragging about, it might be your uncanny ability to screw up twice over one thing. There's more, of course, that I'm sure will come up in your speech: a constitutional county resolution that's not worth the paper it's printed on, a childhood innocence resolution that aimed to take parental rights away from people you don't like, eliminating the DEI department, which created multiple concerns among businesses that are located in or want to locate in Ottawa County. So what's the state of the county? Well, for now, we still have a AAA bond rating, thanks to the previous board's hard work and in spite of you trying your best to knock it down. But check back on that again in a couple months. As long as Joe Moss and Sylvia Rohde are in charge, the only thing imploding faster than the county's reputation is the Michigan GOP.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Hi, Gwen Foes from Perrysburg. I just wanted to mention that if we are providing scientific data, I think that the sources should be cited. And I'm responding to Mr. Nichols' comments earlier, which had a lot of facts that are really misquoted and mistaken. A Mayo Clinic physician, Dr. Ackerman, who has studied sudden death for over 25 years, says that despite a lot of social media rumors, they are not seeing an increase in deaths in young athletes. This is multiple studies, the fact checking shows it. He referenced a recent study that he calls junk science. The report said that more than 1,500 athletes have died in the past year of cardiac arrest due to COVID-19 vaccine. It's not true. He said that's simply not true. We know that in the United States, 75 to 100 healthy athletes from Little League, junior high, varsity, collegiate, who die suddenly each year, and that number has not changed. In fact, the sudden cardiac death rate in athletes has declined in recent years. So another study published in Circulation, a multi-center study that looked at the deaths of athletes over 20-year study. And when they looked at the 8 cases that were attributable to myocarditis over the study period, one case from January 1st through June 3rd, January 1st, 2020 through June 30, 2022, none were attributed to COVID-19 infection. Sudden cardiac deaths, sudden myocarditis occurs with multiple viruses. We know that's true. It is not typically something that causes death. It does resolve. University of Michigan Pediatric Cardiology have been involved in studies of the MRIs of NCAA athletes looking at the myocarditis incidents. those myocarditis that occurs with vaccine have not resulted in deaths. So I would just like to say, I think it's important that we look at science that is peer reviewed and that is documented by people with expertise in the area of which they're speaking. And I, for one, am grateful for my family, for my patients, that I was living in a place where we were responding to the restrictions. It is really important to know that our vaccine rates have gone down, as you know, because of the misinformation. We are now seeing a rise in pertussis, in measles. This is just not the way it should be. The United States did not perform well during the compared to other developed nations.
Thank you.
Death and disability insurers and the actuaries are the ones that.
Dave Morin.
Welcome.
The first thing I'd like to address is the Campbell Plant. I would like you to remember something. The nation that has the cheapest power is going to be the strongest nation in the world. Expensive energy puts a burden upon the people of the lowest financial ability. We have a lot of people that believe in the American dream. We shouldn't let government mandates stand in the way of people achieving the American dream. Green energy, while it may make people feel good about themselves, is not efficient, is not desirable, and will not sustain this economy or this country. It's time we start using common sense instead of worrying about how people feel about whether they're comfortable or not. That being said, I haven't brought this up in quite a while. But I did mention to you how everybody here could be replaced next year. And you've also heard me mention about my favorite subject, the Ottawa County Road Commission. Many of you I've sat down with and showed you documents from the court case, showed you some of the lies they used and the deceit that was used. And some of you responded back and said, well, David, it seems to be political in nature. And I'm not going to disagree with you. Matter of fact, my neighbors said the same thing. The ones that are more experienced than me, meaning they're older, I'll use experience. And just that fact should scare the living daylights out of everybody in this place. So if you stand up for truth and it goes against the county commissioner's will to develop a piece of property against the local zoning, you're going to pay hell. And this board's going to accept that. Are you going to let every one of these people experience what I've experienced? You have within your abilities to change what is. You have within your abilities to change what could be. I know, not very nice, but I am being what I say. I have a video of my favorite driveway, and I'm going to forward to every board member. And the next time I get the chance, I'm going to come and we're going to discuss it. I'm telling you right now, you have within your ability within the next 9 months to fix a wrong in this county. Dissolve the Ottawa County Board of Road Commissioners. Make it part of your responsibility where these people have elected officials that they can go to when they're wronged. You want to know who I get to go to when I'm wrong? Nobody. You think the health department was bad? Ha. So now let's take the scales off our eyes and look at reality. I'm proud of you for what you've done, and you know I've said that. There's a big issue here that you need to deal with. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board?
My name is Justin Compagner, Park Township. I don't really have anything prepared, but I did hear some stuff that I kind of wanted to have some politically incorrect comments about. Heard a lot of people going on about Zealand. I don't know why people think it's so great. School system's horrible, ran by a bunch of hippies. They just shove kids through grades. Anyway, whatever. Probably spend all their time listening to the Beatles. And a lot of people have a lot to say about you guys as our newly elected commissioners. about how you don't know how to do your jobs or whatever it may be. I'm sure that they do everything life perfect themselves, so they have all the room for that judgment. And I don't know why they're not mad that you're not corrupt like everybody before. They were like, wow, we love that corruption that we didn't know anything about, didn't care to do anything for. We love being blind. Let's go back under our rocks. Speaking of which, I hear a lot of energy wasted also attacking others. I don't hear a lot of support necessarily unless it's one side or the other. It's unfortunate that, there's only one cool side of the pillow. Wish we could all get along a little better. So yeah, I always come up here and support you guys. Keep up, the great work. And we understand you're all human and none of you probably wanted to be here. So, you stepped up and did what we all couldn't, I guess. So thanks a lot. And thank you, Chris and Boris, for the great idea of coming up here and thanking everybody.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board?
Luke Sanner, Park Township. I've got a few comments. Before I get to them, though, I just like to welcome Amy PA, Amy Albin, ROI, whatever she calls herself these days. We raised $220 in donation pledges for the Chris Kleinjan's campaign because of her presence. So thank you. So a few things. You can watch it on YouTube. $220. You're not the chair, be quiet. A few things the residents of Ottawa County should keep in mind when listening. Can you shut your peanut gallery up, please, Joe? And stop the smirk into your glass?
Oh, please go ahead and continue.
When your peanut gallery stops, I will. A few things the residents of Ottawa County should keep in mind when listening to the chair's State of the County. The money the county has spent on lawsuits caused by the actions of the board and its employees. Maybe even another from Mr. Gibbs himself. We'll see. When does that letter come out? Resolutions. The only thing most of these serve to do is increase use of the word whereas. Most are meaningful, most are otherwise meaningless. The one that is actually meaningful to many in our county and is a longstanding tradition is the Adoption Day resolution. And this almost didn't happen due to the board's ongoing vendetta against the health officer. Closure of the DEI department. This brought concerns from local employers in the county and is costing grant money that would have benefited everybody, not just people who are in the minority. The Veterans Director. Did we need this position? Sylvia seemed to think so, but based on what? Not data, at least not that we were shown. By all means, let's give our veterans the support they deserve. But this is simply a matter of solving problems that don't exist to score political points. The Ottawa Food Coordinator position. We're still waiting for Mrs. Cosby to put the request to fund this position on Finance and Administration agenda. Finally, our new county motto, where freedom rings. Currently, the sound of freedom on Ottawa Impacts Watch rings hollow.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Welcome.
Hello, Harvey Nickel from Georgetown Township. I didn't quite finish the last sentence about the vaccines. The fact that our health department is still pushing them and they are not safe, they're not effective. You may have noticed that almost all of the data that I gave you is not from this country except for the life insurance ones. That's because you can buy a lot of money with $250 billion of big pharma, which they would have lost from this vaccine if they had allowed ivermectin and budesonide to be used. So we have heard from the beginning, trust the science, trust the science. But yet there are numerous scientists out there that can't publish because they cannot get any papers accepted because it does not match their narrative. Piece of information. December 31, a 23-year-old Jenison alumni had heart stopped. he died 3 days later. I think last summer, a young girl from Grand Haven had a heart attack while playing soccer in Chicago. A little over 2 years ago, a 16-year-old Jenison student had a stroke. Have you ever heard of this? Why is it now? I don't know if they've been vaccinated, but why has not this been investigated? Why hasn't the health department simply asked every family whose person died these last 2 years, have they been vaccinated? Why not ask anybody who goes into the hospital, what's your vaccination status? That's known, but it doesn't match the narrative. Also, as far as data, out of England, they've done studies from the data of the government, looking at the number of people who have been vaccinated and the number of COVID-related deaths. Those people in England who've received 1 dose is 85%, yet the COVID-related deaths is 95.3%. It is not effective. Those who have received 3 doses of the vaccine are 65% of the population, but yet they contribute 90% of the COVID-related deaths. There is data out there. There are doctors talking. If they can keep their license, they'll keep talking. Otherwise, the medical boards are coming after them because they're speaking against the narrative. It is a huge problem of this country.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board?
Aaron J. Pner, Precinct 1, Jamestown Township. First off, I want to thank the board again. Your duties are, I wouldn't want the job. We do appreciate everything you guys do. What you have given up, the attacks. I know it's extremely difficult. I understand. So thank you, board. I also want to piggyback off a bit off of Harvey. And I would ask that the people who think that the jabs are good, I would urge you to go online and take a look at the videos, really hundreds of them, of athletes from middle school all the way up to the pros who just drop dead playing sports. Shoots happen to referees. They just drop dead on the court. You explain that to me. Tell that to their families that it wasn't the jab that did damage. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Dina, Arner, Holland Township. I just want to make one short comment for all of those who are pushing that we need to stay with coal-fired power and how wonderful coal-fired power is. It's so cheap. I understand that you probably have not included in your financial analysis the 1,000 miners who die every year in the United States due to black lung from breathing in coal dust. And yes, that's current numbers. That's from the Mine Health and Safety Administration. But I guess you're not truly pro-life if you can write those miners' lives off as long as you get to pay a little bit less for your electricity. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Dan Zimmer, Port Sheldon Township. Chairman Moss, just a little over a year ago, you and your posse rode into the boardroom. You made it crystal clear a new sheriff was in town. John Shea, you're fired. You made it clear no more diversity, no more equity, no more inclusion. You had a personal baggage involving Libertas School and the health department. You had an axe to grind. Adeline Hamley was a key person position. You wanted control over the health department and needed a pivot. That pivot was Nate Kelly. Your treatment of Adeline and the employees at the health department may not meet the legal definition of harassment, it certainly does not meet the requisite of a faith-based individual. You safeguarded your personal despise for the health department and masked that hate using a facade of active listening. With the Hamley termination stalling and COVID running out of steam, a new torch must be found. The Campbell Plant closure. Taken from Consumers website, as part of our mission to become a cleaner, leaner, and flexible energy company, we're officially retiring our J.H. Campbell complex beginning in early 2024. This will allow us to get closer to end coal use by 2025, lower our carbon footprint, and add more renewable energy for us to deliver. No mention of communist China, China-made solar panels, no mention of liberal agenda, just a testimony to a free market business decision. Free market business decision. I am sure that your state of the county is full of self-accolades. The sages of the ages have said, pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. Let us all active listen onto every word as the chairman gives his glamour shot in spin of Ottawa County. It will reveal the gloss or loss of Mr. Moss.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board?
Oh, boy. PJ Mir Robinson Township. You know, I sit back here and I listen almost humorously to these never-ending attacks by supposedly God-fearing people. I don't know too many God-fearing people that slander and attack and say the nasty things that some of these people do about you people, whether it be true or not. But I sit here and I'm normally not a quiet guy, but I've been quiet these last few months. So I'm going to say something that I want people to just take into heart. If you go to Philadelphia, Independence Hall, just outside of Independence Hall, the backside, there's a little museum. And in that museum, they have a lot of personal notes from our founding fathers when the First and Second Continental Congress convened. And they talk about the physical fights that went on, the actual knockdown, drag out fights, hitting people with canes. Ben Franklin was notorious for doing that. And yet they were still able to put something together. And we call that our freedom, and we call that the United States of America. We sit here one-sided, two-sided, independent, left, right, whatever we want to call ourselves, and we can't seem to get anything together amongst each other. We can't agree to disagree like we used to even 30 years ago. Let's remember 9/11. How did 9/11 bring us all together? We forget that. I served 25 years and I put my life on the line for each and every one of you, whether I agree with them or not. They're American citizens, and I would do the same. How many of us now are willing to do that, sacrifice ourselves for one another to get this country back on track? We have to start here in this county, and this county is divided. Listen to us. We're crying out loud, we're divided. There's so much hatred here. It's sickening. But we continue to do it. We continue to bash and attack people's character, attack people's jobs. If they can do better, get your behinds up here, run, and let's see if you can get in here. But until that time, let's agree to disagree, but let's unite. Let's have a revival as opposed to a revolution. Been there, done that, don't want to fight again, but by God, I will. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board?
You have 2 online public comments, Mr. Chair.
All right, excellent. Let's go to online.
And the first is Adria. And Adria, if you could just state your first and last name, and you have 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you. Adria Hill, Holland Township. Good evening. As a concerned resident of Ottawa County, I want to share my perspective on the state of our county. First and foremost, I want to extend my deepest gratitude to the countless county employees who tirelessly work behind the scenes. You may not always make headlines, but your dedication to providing essential services is greatly appreciated. Over the past year, the Board of Commissioners has taken commendable steps to increase resident engagement. Shifting one board meeting per month to the evening has allowed for more citizens to exercise their constitutional right to voice their concerns. 3 unanimously passed initiatives from last year also stand out. First is the funding for foam trailers, which provides first responders with vital resources. Second is the coordination of early voting services that not only follows the new law, but does so in a way that is fiscally responsible. And the most recent initiative, expanding broadband access, which will unlock opportunities for residents in rural areas. Unfortunately, not all of the board's initiatives have had such a positive effect on our community. Last year, several meetings focused on lengthy resolutions that yielded little tangible progress. Furthermore, while some members of the board are proud of the questions they have asked, I have noticed this rigorous oversight is selectively applied. Looking at the financial stability of the county, it is at a crossroads. Last year brought significant severance payouts, the doubling of legal fees, and expansions in the administrator's office. These raise concerns about responsible spending. If the county does not manage their spending prudently and mitigate legal risks, our bond rating will suffer. The most pressing issue, however, is employee attraction and retention. It is an ongoing issue that the board has not yet addressed. The employee morale issue is partly related to how employees are being treated by commissioners and leaders. Former employees are citing the working conditions under Administrator Gibbs as their reason for leaving. And unfortunately, employees cannot rely on the commissioners to stand up for them. To address these challenges, the county needs to conduct that delayed employee engagement survey. If done in this first quarter, it will provide crucial data on employee concerns and guide the county towards creating a more productive work environment. This will be key to attracting and retaining talented individuals who are essential to our county's success. The good news is that the issues are within the county's control. We are not facing external threats, but internal ones that require attention. By working together and prioritizing responsible sending, fostering open communications, and valuing dedicated employees, we can build a stronger, more vibrant Ottawa County.
Thank you.
And the next public comment is Joe Spalding. Mr. Spalding, if you unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Justin. My name is Joe Spalding. I'm in Holland Township. When I was in high school, I was a junior. My debate partner was one of Pete Hoekstra's pages in Congress through the PAGE program. And so Pete came and spoke at our school. And one of my first memories politically was asking Pete Hoekstra why he voted for the Defense of Marriage Act, which defined marriage as between one man and one woman. And he looked me dead in the eyes and said, I believe that marriage is for procreation only, and that's the only relationship we should sanction. So I asked him why he thought it was okay for women who are postmenopausal to get married. And he's just like, well, I just think that it's for procreation. And I walked out, as you know, I would in high school, especially. I just want the folks that, since you have so many GOP folks there in the front row, I see Aaron Compinger. He is that confessed child molester or attempted child molester there. That's pretty disgusting. He's a Republican precinct delegate. He's sitting in front of a school board member, Donna Mooney, who says she's not a Republican, but she's surrounded by precinct delegates there. I wonder if all these folks that are in the GOP locally understand that you have, Joe, made them an enemy of Donald Trump, and that the Pete Hoekstra corrupt bargain was to box out Karamo and her people, including you, to keep Donald Trump out of the state for the general election, and then to deliver for Donald Trump a string of endorsements prior to the Michigan primary, which isn't common. And all of that is going to be delivered, because while you were trying to dance on the grave of all these non-existent Marxists in Ottawa County that you and Sylvia thought you defeated when you won the primary, the old school GOP was regrouping and getting ready to throw you out. And since you weren't focused on the thing that was the actual threat to you in your existence, you're now in a very, very bad position politically. Unlike our economy, which, you know, I think it's funny to see someone like Donna Mooney try to play Chicken Little with the economy, like minutes after, you know, our guy comes up and says that our 1 year housing increase in value is going up faster than the 2 year. So we're actually accelerating at the rate at which the housing crisis is hurting us. And finally, the last little bit of this corrupt bargain, they're going to be pushing this renewable energy package because Trump isn't going to be here. That anti-renewable energy bill, our ballot initiative, is the anchor for the GOP ballot. So fight it or not, that's your choice.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board? Welcome.
Hi, Christy Matheling from Holland Township. I wasn't going to come up and make public comment, but I just need to commend all of you for sitting up there, taking the slings and arrows, being the voice for our county. It's amazing that last one is representing, or at least on the side of Chris Kleingens, who's running against Lucy Ebel. If that's the kind of representation that he has for the recall petition that's coming up, you might want to rethink your choices. Let freedom ring. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board?
Hello, Board Chairman. I became aware today that a new law passed in Michigan will require background checks regardless of whether or not you're buying from a FFL. The background check that's required needs to be done by your sheriff's department or local law enforcement. And my understanding is every one of these law enforcement agencies is going to be charging for that. This is not the issue of the CPL and whether or not Ottawa County should or can charge for the CPL. This is an actual tax on purchasing a firearm. I encourage this board to look at that and decide whether or not our sheriff's department should be forcing a poll tax, is how I look at this issue. Thank you.
Sir, can I get your name?
Would anyone else like to address the board? Any last brave souls?
So we had a power outage recently.
I'm sorry.
So Grand Haven
I
Township.
so appreciate that. It's for the public record and I'm clerky and I love doing those things.
Recently in Grand Haven Township for a number of days, but my house did hit 55. And so I decided to go to my in-laws. But without a reliable power source, we cannot live here. We cannot live here without reliable power. And so I just wanted to say that I just want us to not freeze to death, and we have to consider that. The other thing, my understanding of solar panels is that it just destroys agriculture. It takes up a lot of agricultural land, which we could use to eat food and farm. And instead and then also the concerns of who pays for the removal of those solar panels after they're out of commission. We have a lot of toxic chemicals in those. And so that's all I really wanted to talk about is please, I mean, that is why I got involved in politics, is because of the energy issue. I just like to be warm. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board? All right, seeing as that is all of the public comments, we'll move to 11, additional business. We do have 2 items. First up is report from County Administrator. So take it away, Mr. Gibbs.
Thank you, Chair Moss. Just a few updates here. The strategic plan, something I did present on a while back here at the Strategic Planning Committee meeting that is moving along. We have a meeting tomorrow with procurement to get the process rolling for putting out an RFP for a vendor for that who can help us through that process. So that is moving along quickly, and we're going to keep it moving fast. We will have an action item for the Finance Committee next week for that. So that is something that will be coming your way. And I would like to have another Strategic Planning Committee meeting in February. And I think we're currently working on the scheduling for that, to see if we can fit that in. So very much look forward to that. As far as budgeting software, we're very excited that's up and running. We've had several calls already with OpenGov, including one this afternoon, which went very well. We're nailing down the schedule for when they're going to come here and sit with us and help us get everything installed and running. And so we've got a pretty good look at what the schedule is going to be for that. There's another call tomorrow as well. That'll be more of a technical call with some of our fiscal services people. So that is moving along pretty quickly. I'm very excited to see the progress on that. And want to thank our fiscal services staff who have been very on top of that and working with the vendors to get that up and running. Veterans Affairs is moving along really quickly. Jason is really digging in, and he's really analyzing things and putting together some good information on what needs to be done in the Veterans Office. One of the issues he's dealing with, for example, is things have previously been done by paper only. So there's a lot of digitizing to do and organizing of those papers, and that is something he's going to be jumping on. The Veterans Committee did have a meeting this past Monday, well, last Monday, January 22nd. So Jason did make sure that that meeting had minutes, which it typically has not had in the past. So we're getting more exposure and proper form to the Veterans Committee meeting. So that is good to see. And the next one is going to be on February 26th. As we all know, the county is paying quite a bit of money for the Southwest Ottawa County landfill. We're apparently required to do about $400,000 to $500,000 worth of work every single year of testing and putting in monitoring wells and whatnot on that. So we're very happy to have put out an RFP to get kind of a new, fresh look on that from some outside eyes to see if there are other options for that thing other than simply draining money every year. We don't know for sure what the possibilities are, but there could be the option of pulling methane gas out of it and then selling that, which some people have done, and a few other things as well. So we really want to get a good in-depth look at what the options might be. So it's not just a money drain. So that RFP, I believe, went out today, actually, to 800 and something different potential firms who might be able to respond to it. So very excited to see what comes in there, and hopefully we get something that will save us some money. And that's all I have for now.
Right, thank you. Excited.
Question.
Commissioner Cosby, yeah.
Checking on the budget software, do you have enough computing power? Does IT have enough computing power to support that new software project?
Oh, yes, yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Commissioner Curran.
Thank you. Do you have any updates on the employee engagement survey? Where are we at? When are we going to do it? When's the last one we had?
We're still looking at what the timing might be on that. So that's a bit up in there right now. We're still looking at it.
Who normally does the employee engagement surveys? Is it done through the administration or is it typically done through HR?
I believe it's done through HR.
Okay.
Anything else? Thank you, Administrator Gibbs. Really look forward to the landfill updates as well. That'll be interesting. There's been long running conversations on that. So thank you. Okay, we are up to 11B, State of the County. I guess what I would look for is, since this is going to be a couple hours, I'm just kidding. If we could take a short recess before we get into it, that would be great. So
Are you serious about the recess?
I am serious about the recess. If we just take a short recess, that'd be great. So if I can get a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and support. Now, because we have one commissioner participating remotely, to take a short recess, we will need a roll call vote.
Absolutely. Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mrs. Current,
Yes.
Mrs. Miedema,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mrs. Cosby,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
No.
Mr. Bergman. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Panama,
No.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebel,
Yes.
and Mr. Moss.
Yes,
And that motion passes.
if we could make this short, that would be great. And I'll be back in. Let's try for 5 minutes, but I will start at 9, no matter what. All right. Welcome back, everyone. I will call this meeting back to order. Thank you for the short break. Appreciate that. All right. Well, next up is the state of the county. And it's an honor to share the state of the county with you tonight. Before I begin, I'd like to say thank you to the people of Ottawa County who took decisive action to defend their piece of America in 2022, to protect individual freedoms, parental rights, and freedom of religion and conscience. Also, thank you to the staff of the county who day in and day out are working for the people of our community. And thank you to the commissioners for their service as representatives. To the public, we are humbled to work for the people in our constitutional republic. 2023 was a year of prioritizing freedom and tremendous learning on the part of the board. We truly love working to protect and build Ottawa County to be a place where freedom rings and families flourish. Ottawa County continues to be among the state's most conservative counties, one of the best places to live, the fastest growing county, and in reports from November of 23, the county in Michigan with the lowest unemployment rate. I'm thankful this board is led by everyday Americans who love God and love their country, nurses, a former social worker, teacher, and individuals with business and government backgrounds. Board members bring decades of professional and life experience with them to their service. I'm also thankful for the character and integrity of my fellow commissioners who approach their responsibilities with servants' hearts and a steel resolve to advocate for the people, for good governance, and to ensure the voices of the people can be heard. We desire to govern with integrity and excellence in a manner consistent with constitutional freedoms and American values, pursuing the good and the beautiful for the people of Ottawa County. I'd like to add a special mention for Commissioner Kendra Wenzel, who joined the board last month as a representative of Georgetown Township's District 6. And with the addition of Commissioner Wenzel, Ottawa County now has a female majority board for the first time. Tonight, it is my privilege to highlight some of the work the Board of Commissioners and employees of Ottawa County have done in 2023. We're thankful for the efforts of hundreds of staff members who work hard to serve the people. Ottawa County offers a healthy and vibrant lifestyle which fosters meaningful work, provides opportunities for business growth, honors the faith of its people, respects the family and parental rights, and protects education excellence for children. We're honored to lead beautiful Ottawa County where freedom rings. So let's start by looking back. Last year, the board entered office and delivered on months of public promises to make reforms in Ottawa County, and began with bold changes to align the leadership with the priorities of the people. New leaders were placed in the roles of county administrator and corporate counsel to prioritize freedom and constitutional rights. The county motto and vision statement was changed from "Where you belong" to "Where freedom rings." The previous vision statement had been used to promote the discriminatory DEI movement in the county. As stated in the resolution that changed the motto, "Where freedom rings, where individual freedoms, parental rights, and freedom of religion and conscience are protected, all people belong." The county logo remained the same, albeit with a minor color change, and existing supplies were used before being reordered, resulting in very minimal expense for this important change in direction. The DEI department was closed on January 3 of 2023, returning county operations to an emphasis on character, excellence, and merit. Closing the DEI department, which was originally opened in 2019, resulted in an annual savings of $286,000 per year. The closure marked a departure from the county's spread of divisive DEI and CRT ideology, which had placed an emphasis on characteristics such as gender, skin color, sexual preference, gender identity, and religious beliefs, and often taught to be reflective of whether a person is oppressed or an oppressor. The closure also ended the county's efforts to spread membership in GARE, a progressive organization connected with UC Berkeley and the Biden administration. The board standing committees also saw changes in 2023. Last year, commissioners were asked to serve on any of the standing committees that they desired. The goal was to provide the opportunity for new commissioners to understand all the various aspects of county government and the county departments. Due to this work, and thank you to board members who put in extra effort, the board is in a much better position this year to create a strong strategic plan for 2024 and beyond. Many commissioners exercised thoughtfulness and discernment during board meetings, asking numerous questions to provide oversight and gain understanding. This is the job of the board. The board paid careful attention to the requirements and ramifications of grants being requested, as well as the organizations that grants were connected to. One example I thought would be worth mentioning is also mentioned in an online post done by Commissioner Miedema. In the post, Commissioner Miedema explained her concerns with an $8,000 grant that was brought to the board for a 2-month social media campaign called Man Therapy that was related to suicide prevention. Commissioners were informed that veterans were at the highest risk of suicide, followed by males and those over 50 years old. Commissioner Miedema had explained on the Man Therapy site, under a section labeled LGBTQ Crisis and Support Resources, links directed youth to something called the Trevor Project, where youth are encouraged to text, call, or chat through online messaging with adults they do not know regarding mental health, sexuality, gender fluidity, and other topics. The Trevor Project further notes, while all our counselors are trained, they're not working as licensed mental health workers and may not be trained in your state's law. This is a mixed message being sent to youth today, wrote Miedema. On one hand, we're educating our children about internet safety, safe adults, and talking with a parent or another trusted adult about hard topics and issues. Then we are driving them to a website where they're encouraged to speak with a complete stranger. And the stranger tells them that their conversation will be kept confidential. I would suggest the phrase kept secret. In the past, grants like this could have been rubber stamped by the board and passed right through. As Thomas Sowell expressed, there are no perfect solutions. There are only trade-offs. Assessing trade-offs has been a priority of the board in 2023 and will remain in the future. In cases where the benefits of a proposal do not outweigh risks, often a different solution can be found. In the case of suicide prevention, the board alternatively made a significant investment in increasing support for veterans by expanding the Veterans Department, with greater potential for long-term impact in the community and greater support for those at highest risk of suicide. Moving along, commissioners also served on numerous other committees throughout the county, such as community mental health, parks and recreation, groundwater, economic development, just to name a few. The talent and recruitment process was also a priority last year and making improvements to it. The committee invested significant effort into organizing the information and improving the interview processes related to the numerous county committees that community members have the opportunity to participate in. The Subcommittee of Talent and Recruitment conducted numerous interviews of citizens from the public over many days throughout the year to make recommendations for those citizens to serve on these committees. The county budget was also a high priority last year. The board focused on unmet needs, like increasing support for veterans by creating the enhanced department, prioritizing ADA compliance across the county in the capital improvement plan, and funding needs in the sheriff's department. In this way, the board is initiating action on items overlooked in the past This new focus is critical for good governance and to have positive impacts for our community and the best use of taxpayer dollars. The capital improvement plan is a big part of planning for the future. A 5-year plan was approved on August 22, 2023 to include approval of ADA compliance needs, first identified in July, and the approval of body cameras for the Sheriff's Department. A lot of work went into creating this plan, and we're thankful to the staff for all of that effort. The board first became aware of ADA compliance needs when the Department of Public Health requested approval for a $10,000 grant to pay for an $8,000 ADA compliant door and lighting to make one of the buildings in the Department of Public Health more accessible and sensory friendly. The purpose of the $10,000 grant was to increase vaccine uptake and then share the data that was collected with Wayne State University. However, the board did not approve this $10,000 grant due to the strings attached, and instead went on to broadly approve funding to prioritize ADA compliance in more county buildings through the capital improvement plan. The plan included fiscal year 2024 funding of nearly $500,000 to address ADA updates, including powered doors, parenting rooms, lighting, and signage for the Department of Public Health building on James Street, as well as additional funding for CMH and the HHS buildings to address ADA updates. This allowed the board to prioritize ADA compliance on a much larger scale without pushing vaccines or sharing data on our people with outside organizations. Another item of note included in the capital improvement plan is the planned capital cost of over $1 million for vehicle and body cameras for the Sheriff's Department, which is anticipated to be rolled out this year. This project had been discussed for a long time and prior funding had been committed, but had stalled for lack of support at the board level. Thank you, board, for being supportive and willing to make body cameras a priority for the Sheriff's Department. Next, I'd like to highlight how the board focused on increasing budget transparency throughout the budget process. The county's budget for fiscal year 2024 was approved on September 26, 2023. The $264 million budget appropriated nearly $110 million in general fund expenditures. The first budget draft was provided to Finance and Administration Committee on August 1 and was built on the budget request from county departments. The Finance Committee added 2 new public work sessions in August to provide increased transparency in the budget for that budget year and that budget work, and added a total of 5 public meetings where the budget was reviewed and addressed. During the committee's work, adjustments were made based on details requested and provided by the administrator, fiscal services, elected officials, appointed officials, and department heads. The board is very thankful for all of the work that went into the budget process by the staff. It became apparent that leaders of the Department of Public Health were not accustomed to board oversight and engagement in the budget process, seemingly expecting blanket approval for department wishes. However, budget oversight is the statutory responsibility of the Board of Commissioners and must be taken seriously by the board. The Department of Public Health's repeated and reactionary engagement with activist media during the process, rather than professional engagement with the board and county leadership, led to unnecessary panic in the community. At $14.39 million, the budget yielded the budget process yielded the second highest budget for the Department of Public Health, second only to the prior year. And that prior year budget had additional COVID spending that had caused it to increase. Thank you, board, for choosing to discontinue those COVID grants. Next up, strengthening the Veterans Department. But numerous community members expressed a long-standing need for increased outreach and expanded services for veterans and their families. Veterans continue to suffer the highest suicide rate like I had mentioned earlier. And surrounding counties have invested greater resources than Ottawa County had, sometimes by passing millages to support veteran services at higher levels. Working within the current financial resources of the county, funds were allocated to hire a director, thoroughly assess current needs, and begin to build the Veterans Department to robustly serve those who have sacrificed so much for our country. The new philosophy of the department is, I'm happy to report, deeds, not words. The department is being built on a foundation of 4 pillars: employment, education, health, and quality of life. We're excited to continue supporting this department and watch the progress the staff makes this year. Another major initiative underway is broadband. Last December, after much work with the staff, the board approved a broadband infrastructure initiative to provide internet services to rural portions of Ottawa County. The $7.5 million in ARPA funds that had been allocated by the prior board will be utilized by the county in combination with state and other funding for a project total of $25 million. The open access expansion increases competition countywide and connects rural areas. It prioritizes our farms and rural communities, and the project will allow the construction of nearly 400 miles of new fiber. An additional partnership with Tealson Technologies allows Tealson to start assessing opportunities for enhanced fixed wireless and ultimately to construct new towers in critical locations, especially in rural areas, that will be supported by the new fiber infrastructure. Both partnership agreements, both for the broadband and Tealson towers, I'm thankful to report, will include provisions for revenue sharing that will direct revenue back to the county. This is something that is fairly unique and innovative, and I'm thankful for all the work that went into negotiating these contracts and agreements. It is helpful so the taxpayers can see money come back to the county. The expansion of reliable, high-speed internet, even in rural parts of Ottawa County, is an important step in ensuring additional access to economic resources and technological advancements and innovation, especially in the farming community. Next, I'd like to review department highlights. I'll go over some briefly. In administration, in 2023, the board approved enhancements to county communications to increase the ability of the county departments and board to effectively communicate with the people. Implementation will continue in 2024. In corporate counsel, new procedures and requirements were put in place to strengthen contract language used by the county with outside organizations. Some of this work was standardization as well. Corporate counsel also assisted with review of county policies and the plan of organization for the Department of Public Health, among many other things. The board worked, for county clerk, the board worked with the county clerk to strengthen election integrity measures while also supporting a joint effort with townships to meet new statutory election requirements for early voting. Local units of government worked with Clerk Roebuck for many months to prepare a plan to meet the requirements of the new state law. The board approved an agreement for early voting administrative services with the provision of additional staff, which we heard earlier tonight were now in place, and resources to facilitate identified needs, including watermark ballots. Thank you, Clerk Roebuck. In the Sheriff's Department, negotiation with multiple law enforcement employee unions placed the county in a stronger position to both attract and retain quality law enforcement personnel. This is important because Ottawa County is known for its safety and security and excellent law enforcement. This is one of the main priorities of the board. Body cameras were mentioned. Funding was approved for body cameras, as well as the support staff that's required to be able to handle all of the video footage in the sheriff and prosecutor's offices. Also, an exciting update, office space was provided for the Children's Anti-Exploitation Partnership, otherwise known as CAP. On April 11, 2023, the board approved the use of office space here at the Fillmore Complex for the Children's Anti-Exploitation Partnership, division of Crisis Aid International. at the request of the Sheriff's Department. CAP serves children and young people up to age 25 as well as their families. CAP is an innovative new approach that focuses on reaching children at risk for sex trafficking and other forms of child sexual abuse. CAP provides advocacy, resources, and support to children and families identified in internet-related crimes against children and in human trafficking investigations. As mentioned earlier, the fire foam trailers in 2022, Ottawa County's hazmat team requested ARPA funds for the purchase of fire foam trailers to protect residents from chemical fires. Unfortunately, that request was not granted. On April 11 of last year, the Board of Commissioners approved the expenditure of $125,000 from the Hazardous Material Rescue Team operation budget to be combined with another $125,000 from local fire department jurisdictions, who all worked hard to make sure that this need was funded. A big thanks goes out to all the people involved in the process, especially in the Sheriff's Department and from the local units. In community mental health, Carter kits were made available to local law enforcement, fire departments, and rescue agencies to assist children with sensory needs in traumatic emergency situations. CMH also started a review of social recreational programs. CMH board is reviewing the social rec programs funded by the county millage. And the review was a proactive response to taxpayer questions about how tax dollars are being spent to support the vulnerable in the community. The CMH millage is also up for renewal in 2026. So we're thankful for the proactive work of the CMH board. In the Department of Public Health, the board took steps to begin to align the department with the priorities of the people, bringing transparency and accountability to the department. During the year, as mentioned, the board took care with the evaluation and approval of grants, weighing the benefits and risks before making decisions. In the finance department, the board continues to move towards a cost of service approach, which you heard mentioned tonight a little bit, in budgeting and resource allocation for the county. This effort will help the board, staff, and the community better understand how taxpayer dollars are being spent. The board is working to improve awareness of programs that are valued in our community by our community members through new budget software. And this new software that was researched last year was just approved this month, as we've heard quite a bit about. This as well is very important for the additional transparency, for fiscal transparency and long-term decision-making. In Parks and Recreation, the Parks Department continues to provide amazing opportunities for education and recreation for both our residents and visiting tourists. Work and expansion of the county's numerous parks continued with the Rosemount expansion, Kirk Park, Sequoia Trails, and Ottawa Sands. In the Ottawa County 20th Circuit Court, we have updates on the Family Justice Center. Construction continues here at the Fillmore Complex, and this will provide much needed space and resources for our courts. Adoption Day, which I'm excited to mention, the board celebrated Michigan Adoption Day by passing a resolution and participating in the proceedings at the Ottawa County Family Court. Commissioner Sylvia Rhodey read the resolution and shared her thoughts on behalf of the board as the day held special meaning for her, since she worked in foster care and adoption and had adopted a son. The resolution stated in part, today we celebrate families and children who embrace the beauty and the hard that is adoption. There's pain and loss that brings us to adoption, but there's also so much love and joy. We also celebrate siblings who are part of adoption stories and lifelong relationships. Families throughout Ottawa County have invested in providing foster and adoptive homes for children in need, which is beautiful to see. And it was wonderful that so many board members could head across the parking lots to participate in the ceremony, which I hope we see continue in the future. In the Human Resources Department, administration and HR made adjustments to policies and job classifications to better retain experienced staff members. The county also adjusts certain benefits to remain competitive in the market. In the Department of Strategic Planning, there is a lot happening. but I'd like to mention one item in particular. The department proposed a cost-saving initiative, which was approved to demonstrate the use of natural landscaping. This in turn will reduce expenses at the Fillmore complex, and we're excited to see how it looks this spring. Moving on, we should recognize two items that fit into the category of the good and the beautiful. The Ottawa County Art Trust exhibition was on June 26, 2023. And last summer, the walls of the Fillmore complex were covered with beautiful works from talented local artists. Ottawa County and the Holland Area Arts Council chose 8 of the 53 pieces for purchase awards. And to all who participated, thank you for making our days brighter while at work. There were also significant emphasis put on agriculture. Commissioners have invested a lot of time and energy in supporting the diverse and abundant agriculture in Ottawa County, recognizing its economic importance for our county and our state, and the contribution of our farms to our culture and our way of life. Commissioners went on numerous events and learning experiences to help with future decision-making. Next, I'd like to just mention a couple resolutions. The board spoken in numerous issues facing the county via its resolutions, but here are 2 examples. One is the constitutional county resolution that was passed on May 23, and I'll just read one excerpt. Therefore, be it resolved that the board declares Ottawa County, Michigan, to be a constitutional county, and resolves to protect the individual freedoms of the people of Ottawa County as outlined in the constitutions of the United States and the state of Michigan, to include freedom of speech, religion, and assembly, the right to keep and bear arms, and the right to due process. The resolution to protect childhood innocence passed on June 27. An excerpt includes, be it further resolved, no county staff or resources shall be allocated to activities, programs, events, content, or institutions which support, normalize, or encourage the sexualization of children and youth. The board encourages individuals and communities to promote the good and the honorable to children rather than the normalization of sexual behaviors, protecting the health and well-being of our children and the future of our county. Much has happened in the last year. I'm excited to see what the board does in this year as well. As we enter 2024, the Ottawa County Board of Commissioners will lead courageously, reject passivity, and restore and protect local authority, and respect the values and the faith of the people of Ottawa County. As a constitutional county, we'll protect the individual freedoms of the people of Ottawa County to include freedom of speech, religion, assembly, the right to keep and bear arms, and the right to due process. We will promote a love of America and her people. We will live out the county mission statement of where freedom rings. Where individual freedoms, parental rights, and religious and conscience freedoms are protected, all people belong. We will support a strong public safety, law enforcement, and justice system, as well as continue the work of compassionate rehabilitation through the court system to decrease recidivism and increase the productivity and flourishing of individuals and families. We will encourage individuals and communities to promote the good and the honorable to children rather than the normalization of sexual behaviors, protecting the health and well-being of our children and the future of our county. We will protect and prioritize the needs of families, children, and unborn children. We'll protect each parent's right to guide their child's care and education. We'll be watchful of how the county interacts with the OAISD and local school districts. We'll promote accountability and transparency to ensure the county's actions with schools are both limited and appropriate. We'll protect the individual and parental rights to make personal health choices. And we'll require government to provide information rather than operate through orders or coercion. We'll honor our heroes of freedom, our veterans, with not only words, but actions, strengthening the Veterans Department's ability to serve veterans and their families. We'll prioritize excellence and merit over identity characteristics in county interactions and in county hiring, treating all individuals with kindness and respect. We'll prioritize fiscal responsibility and transparency in the use of government funds, otherwise known as taxpayer dollars, through public reporting of county expenses, yes, even down to McDonald's receipts, as well as the implementation of improved budgeting software and continued robust budget process. We'll explore and seek to implement innovative solutions for the challenges and opportunities of energy, groundwater, housing, and home ownership. We'll work to protect farmland and the diverse agricultural industry of Ottawa County. We'll support election integrity efforts of the county and township clerks to include the implementation of watermarked ballots. We'll continue to support the development of Ottawa County's parks, encouraging communities to enjoy the good and beautiful things of nature's surroundings. We'll support business growth and independence in Ottawa County, recognizing our county is built on the hard work and entrepreneurship of generations of individuals and families. Every job is essential. We'll support the meaningful work of the Community Mental Health and Department of Public Health, ensuring the needs of the vulnerable are met while respecting parental rights and individual freedoms. In closing, the board will continue to make Ottawa County where freedom rings and focus on preserving the heritage of Ottawa County. We live in an amazing place with wonderful people, great jobs, low unemployment, significant growth, strong churches, thriving communities, and a people who love freedom. I'd like to, again, thank the board, the staff, and the people of Ottawa County. And especially, I'm grateful to Almighty God for the blessings of freedom and the duty to secure these blessings for our children and our grandchildren. With that, we have reached the end of our meeting. Well, thank you. And this meeting is adjourned.